So does musk smell like Elon Musk? Now this fragrance is adorned with 3,571 diamonds. Let's talk about the worst smelling fragrance out there. Yes, I am going to name one, and that is, okay, so a summer wedding. What is going to be an easy pick? Guys, this is a classic.
Yep, that's me.
So why do certain fragrances give me a nostalgic feeling? So one of the reasons that fragrances can trigger nostalgic memories is they are processed in the limbic system. Now the limbic system, as many of you guys know, is the emotional center of the brain. Now to be specific, it's the olfactory bulb, which is part of the limbic system that processes the smells and has access to the amygdala. Basically, when you smell something, your brain is using the same area that processes emotions and memories. For example, the smell of leather could bring back memories of going for a ride in your dad's convertible. A signature scent. What's the best option for a man? So here's the deal. Fragrance is incredibly subjective. Something that I love that's really unique, maybe reminds me of a great memory, you may absolutely hate. So the best advice I can tell you with finding a signature scent is to go out there, explore, and try some fragrances on. And wearing the fragrance for a while is key. When you smell it on paper, it's not the same as how it's going to smell on your skin. In addition, you're going to find some of these fragrances aren't linear, meaning that they're not going to smell the same. They may have an opening note that's going to be very different from their base notes. Now, if you're just getting into fragrances, walking into an Ulta, a Sephora, well, the majority of your options there are going to be designer fragrances. That's not a bad thing. In fact, if it is a mass appealing fragrance, that's a good indicator you're probably going to get compliments and your partner is going to like it. I always think a solid approach is to choose something that's relatively affordable and maybe get two fragrances on opposite ends of the spectrum. So maybe for warmer weather, a light, clean, fresh citrus. And for evenings or cooler weather, something that's going to be richer, heavier, a little bit sweeter, maybe with a bit of vanilla. Now the fragrance I'm holding up here is Versace Eros. And I did see a question about, is this fragrance versatile? Well, the short answer is it's complicated. I know guys that this is their signature scent. They wear it in warm weather, cool weather. It is their go-to. It's the only fragrance they own. But personally, when I think of a versatile fragrance, I think one that can be dressed up, dressed down. You can wear it out on a date. You can wear it to the office. It's non-offensive, but you can also spray a little bit more on and it's noticeable, at least for a while. So straight up, if you were to ask me which one of these is more versatile, I would go with the Tom Ford Grey Vetiver Parfum. And speaking of Tom Ford, does he have a fragrance for every mood swing? Well, I don't know about your emotional range, but for me, Tom Ford pretty much covers everything. From bitter peach to cherry smoke, to black orchid, to ombre leather. Tom Ford is the master of capturing emotion and energy in a fragrance. In fact, this one right here, Oud Mineral, if you are ever feeling like a sexy pirate, this is the fragrance for you. Highly recommended. All right, so what about for a summer wedding? What would be an easy pick? Guys, Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue Eau Intense. It's not the original light blue. This one is nice, but it dies really quick. The Eau Intense has staying power, and it's just classic, beautiful. You're going to get compliments all day. All right, so what about a going out fall winter fragrance? One that's going to bring in the ladies. Guys, Jean Paul Gaultier's Elixir. Actually, any of the Jean Paul Gaultiers, in general, these are going to be sweeter fragrances, but the Le Parfum or the Elixir are friggin' amazing. All right, so now let's talk price. Do you need to spend a lot of money to get an amazing fragrance? The answer is absolutely not, especially if you're going for older fragrances that have been out for a while. A lot of times you can find those across the web at discounted prices, but there are tons of houses. One of them, Davidoff. Many of you guys have heard of Cool Water. This is a classic, should be pretty much in any man's cologne collection. Another great house that actually flies under the radar is going to be Antonio Banderas. Check out his Icon collection. Very affordable, and yeah, it doesn't have amazing staying power, but it's a great smelling fragrance. Now, what if you do have a little bit more money to spend? What's the most expensive fragrance out there? So check out this one right here. We've got Shamouk by Spirit of Dubai. Now this fragrance is adorned with 3,571 diamonds. It also is designed with gold, silver, pearls, and topaz. In fact, the showcase that this fragrance comes in, which by the way, you get about 3 liters of it. Yeah, this fragrance right here, which took approximately 3 years and 494 trials to create, could be yours for only $1.3 million. Now the fragrance I am wearing today is actually from that same house, the Spirit of Dubai, because they have some much more affordable options, but it is a niche house. And I know when you hear the word niche, some of you guys are thinking that that is code for just weird. And yes, there are some weird niche fragrances out there with unique notes. This one, I grew up on a ranch. So this one has a little bit of a horse stable smell to it, which is actually weird because I like it. But seriously, some niche fragrances, yes, are going to be very unique and have notes that you won't find in mass appealing fragrances. Other ones are going to be relatively mass appealing. In fact, sometimes they can be described as more luxurious, stronger, better mixed versions of popular designers. Example, this fragrance right here from Serjoff, 40 knots. If you like Acqua di Gio Profumo, which is now discontinued, but you wanted the higher end version of it, this would be the one to grab. Now at this point, gents, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Max Aroma. If you're looking for niche fragrances, the best place to buy fragrances online, go check out Max Aroma. So right here, this niche fragrance from Mikolev is Red Colorado. I'll tell you, as a guy that owns over 600 fragrances, I don't have anything like this, and that's why I loved it. I'm a big fan of Colorado, and that's what I get. I was at Red Rocks with my wife the other day, and the best place to grab this fragrance is over at Max Aroma. Another thing I love about Max Aroma, you can buy samplers, pretty much of all the fragrances they carry. So if you don't want to take a chance on a 50 ml or 100 ml bottle, no, you want to get a 5 ml tester, just go over to their website, you can make it happen, and then you can try this fragrance for a couple weeks on your skin and see if it's a good fit for you. And gents, as always here at Real Men Real Style, I make sure you get the best deal on the web, so use that link in the description of today's video. Go over to Max Aroma, check them out, an awesome company. I'm proud to support them. So is Credaventus just pineapple juice in a fancy bottle? The answer is no, because if you try drinking this stuff, you're going to poison yourself. Also, as you can see here, Credaventus is flammable, which, by the way, if you're ever interested in the note breakout of fragrances, you should go check out this website. It's called Fragrantica. You could look up pretty much any fragrance that has ever been made. And when you go over there, not only are you going to see the accords, the note breakouts, but you're going to get a little bit of history on the fragrance and other fragrances that smell just like it, which is really useful. Now, the House of Creed has been around for a long time. We're talking hundreds of years. Credaventus, though, has only been around for less than 15. Came out in 2010. Now, for reasons that go beyond explanation, this fragrance caught fire not only with the fragrance community, but in general, it was one of those pleasing fragrances that was unique enough, yet it was still mass appealing, yet it smelled high-end, so people absolutely love it. Now, in my personal opinion, I do believe it is overhyped, but I do recommend, because of its iconic place in men's fragrances, that you go into a store and you actually smell it for yourself and try wearing it. And by the way, if you do like the scent, but you're on a tight budget, there are tons of clones that are incredibly affordable and highly recommended. I've talked about them before on this channel. All right, so for this next question, you're having trouble making a decision. Should you go with Spice Bomb Extreme, Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male Elixir, or Armani Stronger With You? Now, gents, as you can see here, I've got all three of these fragrances. I like all three of these fragrances, but for the average guy that just wants to own between 3 and 10 colognes, this can be a bit excessive because, let's face it, the note that is the same here that gets you all the compliments is vanilla. Now, in more ways than one, vanilla is a very powerful note. First up, it has longevity. This, when in a fragrance, in general, is going to help it last longer and project more. Another thing with vanilla fragrances is across the board, especially in the West, human beings love these, whether they are men or women. But women especially are going to be drawn to these fragrances. Vanilla fragrances get compliments and are seen as very seductive. So, which one of these fragrances to choose? Well, if I'm on a tight budget, I'm going to probably go with Emporio Armani's Stronger With You. As many of you guys know, Emporio Armani is actually a division of Armani that was made to be more affordable. This fragrance has also been out since 2017, so you can find it at discounters. This is a fragrance that you can get relatively inexpensively. And don't let that fool you. This fragrance I stayed away from for a long time because I just didn't like the name. But no, it is a solid pick. Some people consider it a masterpiece. Now, if I wanted a fragrance that's going to be a little bit more unique, people are going to pick up on more, probably even get even more compliments, then in that case, I'm going to recommend Spice Bomb Extreme. And the reason being is Spice Bomb Extreme, like the name implies, has a bit of spice to it. It doesn't itch the nose, but it definitely draws attention that there is something unique here. But if you're looking for a winter fragrance, it's going to get you compliments, remind some people of Christmas, but not in a bad way. A lot of people have talked about this fragrance as having niche quality, but at a designer price. When it comes to longevity and projection, this one is hard to beat. In addition, because of that bit of spice in there, it is very easy for people to pick up on and recognize. In fact, the only issue I've got with this fragrance is that it can be overpowering. So don't spray too much, especially if you're going to be going into an interview or on an airplane. Now, the newest fragrance here is Jean Paul Gaultier Le Male Elixir. This fragrance, though, is probably the sexiest. A big part of that is the honey note, and if you know anything about Jean Paul Gaultier and the fragrances in this line, they are predominantly sweet. So the only issue here, make sure you smell it before you buy it, because it could be a bit cloying for some. So does musk smell like Elon Musk? Well, I'm actually not sure because I don't know what Elon Musk smells like, but the word musk in fragrance comes from the musk deer. Now, as many of you guys know, in the fragrance world, they had a lot of natural fragrances that were taken from animals. One of these was from the musk deer, specifically from the glandular secretions of that animal. And nowadays, almost all fragrances, if they're going to use a musk, they're only using a synthetic musk. And the reason they've used this note in general is it's a fixative, which basically means it's an enhancer. So it would increase the other notes, the other fragrances, it would increase their tenacity. Now, speaking of Elon Musk, let's talk about the worst smelling fragrance out there. Yes, I am going to name one, and that is burnt hair. Manufactured by Elon Musk's Boring Company, I had a friend purchase this for me, send it to me, and I have to say I'm glad I did not spend my own money on this because it smells exactly like it says, like burnt hair. It is friggin' horrible. Now, is Dior Sauvage the bro scent of the decade? I'd have to say it is close if it's not, because this has been, for the last decade, the #1 seller pretty much throughout the world. And a lot of fragrance snobs look down on this fragrance, but the reality is it gets compliments, and there is a reason it has been the best seller, because it smells good, people like it, and they've got a hell of a marketing campaign. Another important note of this fragrance and why it can come off as so obnoxious is the use of ambroxan. Now, the ambroxan in Sauvage is a synthetic note, but it actually comes from a natural smelling occurring substance known as ambergris. Ambergris, as you may know, is a solid, waxy, and strangely flammable substance that is a dull gray, and it's produced in the digestive system of sperm whales. Basically, the teeth of squid and other things it can't digest, guess what? It throws them up, and yes, we put it into fancy fragrances or try to imitate it. Basically, whale vomit is being used in the smell of these fancy fragrances. Yeah, who would have thought? But seriously, if you find some of the ambergris on the beach, it is more valuable than gold. All right, so what are the top benefits of a fragrance for men? Why even bother, especially if you're already in a relationship? So when it comes to fragrance, I like to use the analogy of football, specifically the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. That team won a championship in spite of having one of the worst offenses of all time. Their defense, freaking spectacular. And most guys, when it comes to defense, when it comes to deodorant, when it comes to showering, they're pretty darn good. But when it comes to offense, they're like that 2000 Baltimore Raven team. They have none. And that's what fragrance does for you. Fragrance gives you the ability to connect with other people, to have a signature scent, to get them to look your way without you saying anything. The right fragrance can make you memorable. It can have you stand out from the crowd. It can have a woman notice you that wouldn't have turned her head elsewise. So sadly, that 2000 Baltimore Raven team is never going to be in the top 10 list of greatest NFL teams ever. And yes, you may have made it this far not caring about fragrance, but if you had that weapon in your arsenal, all of a sudden you could do so much more to stand out from the crowd. All right, Jen, so what video to watch next? How about how not to apply fragrances? We talked about fragrances and how they can make you smell repulsive. In this video, I talked specifically about how not to apply them so that, you don't get kicked off the airplane. Not a good thing, especially right in the middle of the flight. Learn how to apply fragrance correctly. I got you covered in this video right here.